I was a glowing orb in space. A 2-fluorodischloroketamine trip report by D. Stewart, uploaded to earwid.org February 3rd, 2022. Earwid note. The dose described in this report is very high, potentially beyond Earwid's heavy range, and could pose serious health risks or result in unwanted extreme effects. Sometimes, extremely high doses reported are errors rather than actual doses used. This was the second time I had ever taken 2 FDCK. My purpose was to just experience ego death and completely dissociate from reality. The plan was to go to my friend's house in the evening and stay the night. When I got there, it wasn't just my friend, there was also another guy who I used to be friends with a long time ago. I hadn't seen him about 4 years, so I didn't feel completely comfortable using drugs with someone I basically barely knew anymore. When I came in, my friend told me they were on acid. My friend had taken 240 micrograms of 1p-LSD, and the other guy was on 120 micrograms. They weren't tripping yet, but the tabs were under their tongues. Again, I didn't feel comfortable with this, as I didn't know in what state of mind I would be on such a high dose of 2 FDCK. We sat down and watched some TV while waiting for the 1p-LSD come up. Eventually, my friends were feeling the acid, and decided to take a key bump of 2 FDCK. I was kind of bummed that my friend didn't say he was going to take acid, because then I might have taken acid as well. My friend was all out. The key bump I took was quite large, I would say about 30 to 50 milligrams. After about 5 minutes, I started to feel something. It felt like I was made out of rubber, as when I moved my body, it felt like it stretched further than normal. I stood up and walked around, and it felt like I was drunk. I've never been drunk yet, but I would imagine that's what it would feel like. Some time had passed. We went upstairs for a minute, because my friend wanted to show me something on his computer. We stayed up there for about 30 minutes and then came back down. Walking downstairs was very difficult though. When we were back in the living room, I decided to take about 150 milligrams more to try and dissociate. After snorting the large line, I immediately started getting the disgusting drips. It was way worse than the small amounts I had done previously. I put the plate with the powder in a closet because I felt too incapable to put it back in the baggie and I didn't want it to spill on the floor of the table. Again, it took about 5 minutes to kick in, but it felt much longer. I didn't exactly know how you got in a K-hole, whether you could force it or you just had to fall in naturally. But my question was answered about 30 minutes later, when I laid down and fell into one. I could see myself lying on my friend's couch and saw a glowing orb leave my chest. This orb represented myself, I guess you could call it a soul. I was viewing the orb from an outsider's perspective. It flew up straight into space. I could see our solar system, but it was completely wrong. Everything was made out of tiny coloured glowing dots. It was also wrong, as in it wasn't our solar system, but I knew it was somehow. Instead of there being a sun, it was a planet that looked like Mars, but it had the rings of Saturn. The rest of the planets didn't resemble any other planets I knew of. I, the orb, kind of flew through the system and looked at the planets and the space around me. And then, I was suddenly transported back to Earth, but not in my friend's house. I could see a landscape with hills, trees and grass. I could also see a cart being pulled up by horses, with some people around it. I came closer and flew around it, and then merged with one of the wheels. I guess you could say I became the wheel. After this, I woke up. I sat up and started breathing really heavily. I even grabbed my chest. It felt like I had woken up from the dead. At least, that's what I would imagine it would feel like. After I'd kind of calmed down, I went back into the hole. This repeated a few times, but I only remember the visions from the first episode. After the last hole, I think it was a total of 3 or 4, I started looking at and feeling my hands. I remember feeling really happy that I was back in my own body once again. I think I went to sleep after that and came down. I also remember seeing the molecular structure of DNA and a bunch of molecular structures. I don't know which substances they were, but I'm pretty sure they were psychoactive. I think I saw these between the space scene and the horses in the cart. After I slept a bit, I could hear the other guy leave. I then began to sleep some more. After I'd woken up for real, I still felt kind of high, but it wasn't pleasant. I talked with my friend about my trip, and after cleaning up some, I left.